I'm going to start this off with a bit of a warning that this may be long because there's a lot to present, and also I'm not sure anybody would be interested if I split this into a part 3, so I'm going to do the best here to keep it short and keep it at part 2. Also, if you hear meowing in the background, that's my cat. As I mentioned before in the other video, I will do my best to limit that or cancel it out however I can. Anyway, let's get started. So this picture is one that I saved because it was the most full body picture of Jennifer that I ever saw. I believe it was on Lauren's Twitter account. I used to have the second picture in the set, which was Lauren placing a flower crown on Jennifer's head while she, I guess, passed out from exhaustion getting ready for the premiere of Hannibal. And yeah, that's the only reason I really kept it. That and the fact to show that she wears a wig. And the reason I wanted to show that is because of the fact that she always would claim up and down that it was her real hair, but you can definitely tell that's not her real hair. Of course, we jump right into this picture, which was next, which was a picture that was definitely on her Instagram account. I know that I said that repeatedly in the last video, but I was mistaken because she did a lot of cross-posting. But this one I know because you can tell the name's different at the top, and that was her Instagram handle. And this was her trying to show off her hair, quote unquote, even though it's definitely obviously a wig. So, yeah. This was a picture of her hand with fake blood on it that she posted on her Instagram. This is just another shot of her leg. It was on her Instagram. I don't remember the context or what she captioned it, but I don't know. I saved it because pretty much anything that revealed her body part or what she may physically look like seemed helpful at the time. And I just didn't want to get rid of it. So that's the explanation. This is a picture of Lauren when she went to visit Jennifer at what they called the murder house. They called it the murder house. This isn't something that I came up with. I don't know the context of this picture. All I can say is that it looks like Lauren's in some type of crib somewhere. I don't remember what is originally captioned either. I just found it to be very weird. This picture was obviously from her Twitter account, and this is a picture of Lauren with Roxy. Roxy is in the glasses doing the Will Graham cosplay, and Lauren is in the flower crown. This was for San Diego Comic-Con, and this was one of those times where Jennifer would send out her quote-unquote staff, because they were both on her staff, and they would give away stuff like those Heddle Crime business cards or the stickers or the postcards or anything that you see them holding. They would give this away to quote-unquote fans of Freddie. It was just a way to promote her website. This was from Lauren's Twitter account. It was a cane that Jennifer got her for Frederick Chilton cosplay. Jennifer tended to get her a lot of gifts and was someone who would love bomb her and spoil her and convince her everything was okay. And I think all this love bombing and stuff is what eventually convinced Lauren to move back in with her and be with her. But I guess I don't really know the real reason, so that's only speculation on my part. This is a picture of Lauren who is posing with the cane. As you can see, early on, which this picture was dated in 2014, around the time I met Jennifer, I think, she presents as more female, not male. And if you could see a progression of pictures as time goes on, you would see her switch to male presenting when she was going by male pronouns and saying that she was trans and going by the name Frederick, until eventually she slipped back out of that and just said that she was non-binary, but she wasn't trans anymore. This is just some art that I saved that Lauren did for the Freddie and Frederick ship on Tumblr and Twitter. I think I only saved this one as proof that in my last video I showed this same exact custom Funko and I said that Jennifer would keep it with her if Lauren wasn't with her. And here is Lauren kind of acknowledging that fact by saying, "Adorably tiny me holding my business card." A bit too large, it seems. So yeah, Lauren really played into this whole thing. I don't know if it was exactly because she wanted to or she felt she had to, but this is just proof of that. So now we get into the chat transcripts part, and as you can see, this is from Jennifer. Anything that you're going to see is going to say Freddie because that was her name on Skype, and there's nothing I can do about it. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, she did a lot of things in the chat where she would like do an action instead of actually speaking. And here you can see that she's saying Freddie wants to stay in bed but has to be up for a meeting with DLC. And DLC is the De Laurentiis company, who was Martha De Laurentiis' company, and she didn't ever actually mean Martha De Laurentiis, as far as I know. I believe the only person she was connected with in that company was the guy who ran the Twitter account, and his name was Rick. And I know in some videos in the past I mentioned that he had a bad reputation in the fandom, that there were girls who called him Creepy Rick or Creeper Rick, that there were some allegations of him acting inappropriately with young girls in the fandom. And the reason I'm explaining all of this is because I know for a fact he pulled strings to get Jennifer like a lot of perks and a lot of things that she wanted. I don't know how she convinced him to do this, because it's not like she had money. But then there were some theories that maybe she was like getting Lauren to do stuff for him because of the rumors that were going around about him at the time. And I'm not saying any of this is true. I'm just saying that multiple people talked about this guy and said he was creepy. And he was also like best friends with Jennifer for literally no reason. I mean, he wasn't benefiting from it, just giving her stuff and giving her access to things. So one does have to wonder what his motivation was to give Jennifer all these perks and stuff for nothing in return. It couldn't have been nothing. You don't get something for nothing. You see what I'm saying? So that always creeped me out. Now, the context of this, and I believe I either used this screenshot in another video or I at least mentioned it, is that Jennifer went through this whole period of time where she believed that the convention in New Jersey, the first one that Mads was going to, I believe it's called Monster Mania, she didn't think that he was going. She thought it was a scam. She thought that they were advertising him as being there so they could sell tickets and then at the last minute announce his cancellation and keep all the money, because if a guest cancels at a convention, they get to keep the money because that's in their terms of service. So she thought that was what was going to happen. And she's referencing, that it could work out nicely because she wanted to get a picture of him with her business card. And at the bottom, she says, if he's even going, because she was for literally no reason paranoid that this was a scam. This is in reference to a character on the show named Abel Gideon, and just Jennifer explaining that he liked Freddie because of that like one scene where he kept her alive so he could do surgery on Frederick Chilton, which was like the only interaction Freddie ever had with that character in the show. So here she says, I think she knew he liked her. That was always my headcanon. Abel adored her and found her pretty and charming, nothing like his wife. I mean, none of this is in the show. Like, none of it is in the show. This is just, like, stuff she came up with because she was convinced that every single character in the show was in love with Freddie or having a love affair with Freddie. Every single person, every single male character was in love with Freddie, and they had to have her, and she was, like, secretly all of their lovers. And this includes characters that Freddie barely interacted with or clearly hated her, like Will Graham. I don't quite remember what this was in reference to, but I know I saved it because of the fact that, well, she used to like to talk about how she was romantically and sexually involved with all of these characters. And this one says, Dear Anon, like she's answering a Tumblr question. I used to think Will was crazy and I slept with him and he was great. Still cray cray, but I'm going to talk nicer about him in public, the end. And as I mentioned before, none of her Freddiness was ever in character. Same with Roxy being Will, or Lauren being Frederick, or Hannibal being Hannibal. Actually, to be fair, Hannibal was probably the most correct portrayal in this group. That's not saying too much, but I guess if it was some sort of a competition where I had to rank who was the best at portraying these characters, I'd put Hannibal at the top. I really never had anything against this person. I know they didn't like me, but that was probably because of drama and because people weren't allowed to like me because of Jennifer. But as I go through more of this, you'll see that she is nothing like Freddie Lounds, the character, if you know the show. If you don't, then you're just going to have to trust me on that. But yeah, Freddie would never write anything like this, even in a reply. This is her referencing the texture of her hair. She says that mine can't decide what it is, straight, curly, neither or both. And I said mine is naturally a bit wavy, that's all I get, which is the truth. And then she says, when I was younger, it was board straight, then super curly, then wavy, then straight, and now back to curly. I should just call it tangled. Which I saved because I found it funny because she only ever showed herself wearing wigs. I also have my doubts that hair goes through that extreme of changes naturally or whatever. I don't know because I haven't researched this, but it just seems that maybe she was referring to wearing a lot of wigs and not what her hair actually did, because every single picture that I can find where you can see what she calls her hair is clearly a wig. Now, this involves a little bit of a story time. So Jennifer here is saying, do you want a bloody Hanny from San Diego Comic-Con? And I said I wanted anything from San Diego Comic-Con since I'll always be too poor to go. And she said, if I can get one, right? I wish I could afford it one day. Now, several things here. First of all, she had this plan to send Lauren and Roxy to San Diego Comic-Con, and then they were ordered to wait at this Funko booth super early, like for hours, until it opened. And she told them that they had to buy every single one of these limited edition bloody Hannibal dolls. And I don't recall what the reason is that they didn't get one. Maybe somebody else before them bought them. Maybe they were only limited to, like, you know how sometimes they say only 2 per person or whatever. But what I remember being told, and this could be inaccurate, but I think it's correct because I think that she would have posted a picture if she ever got one. I don't know. I'd have to look. But from what I recall, she either only got one or she didn't get any. But people that she hated, like she absolutely hated, did get some. And she was really, really mad that they somehow got these limited edition Funkos. Now, if you're asking yourself why she would want to buy like 100 of them or however many they had in stock, because she wanted to buy the entire stock. Well, she wanted Lauren and Roxy to do that. Her plan was to have all the limited edition bloody Hannibal dolls because like everybody wanted one. And then she was going to use that in giveaway contests to promote her site. Now, as I mentioned before, I mentioned in the last video that her giveaway contest had predetermined winners. And this is how I know, is because what I just said. She wanted to use these Funkos for giveaway contests to promote her website. But she also wanted to use them to, like, pay people for services rendered or do favors for her friends. She never ever ran these contests legitimately. She always had the winners picked out before the contests even happened. And this includes this one for me if she had ever run the contest in the first place. But because she either couldn't get her hands on all the ones she wanted or she only got one of them and she was really pissed off, the contest never happened. So that's the story behind this little snippet of text. Here's another example, once again, of her putting actions like she's role-playing into the Skype chat, where it says, Freddie nods, understands that, hasn't worked a quote-unquote real job in years. And she says, freelance photography doesn't pay much, but I can do it when I'm feeling good. Now, I never believed that she did any photography that was worth selling to anybody. And I would think that if she was doing freelance photography, there would be some evidence of this, like a credit under her name or something. or one of her fake names. But as I mentioned in the last video, most of the photos I got were clearly from her phone and not like a good camera. And though I will admit some of them are pretty good. I wouldn't say they're like professional quality, and I certainly wouldn't think she's selling them to anybody. I highly doubt that she had this job. I think she just said that she did this because it aligns with Freddie Lounds being a journalist who is freelance and goes out and takes pictures of stuff. So yeah, this is just another thing where she would present this as real, like something she really did, because she also thought or wanted people to think that she was the real Freddie. Or one time she told me that she wasn't really Freddie, but she was what the show used as inspiration. So she was like, you know how they exaggerate and dramatize things for TV? They took my life story and then they made it entertainable. Like, that was what she told me. I'm not lying. She said that to me. Once again, if she really thought this or she just wanted me to think this, I don't know, but she did say it. This is in reference to her father, who there were times she implied that her father was famous. There were times that she implied her father was very rich. There were times that she implied that her father was Robert Downey Jr., and she just couldn't tell anybody. I know that the history that people have dug up, people seem to think that she is from a wealthy family with a wealthy father. I don't know how true any of that is. But we were talking about something, God knows if I remember, maybe it'll come to me. And she was talking about how her father had her on an allowance, and it was like also her money, technically, but he controlled it, or he decided when she got it or something, so she was poor. This is like one of the sob stories she used to get people to buy her gifts or donate to her website. At some point, she was talking about inheritance, and like when he dies, she'll get a bunch of money, allegedly. And I jokingly suggested something like a throw mama from the train maneuver, where like one of us kills the other person's problem, and it was a joke. And that's what she's responding to here. She said she would never consider anything like that, but then she said, ironically, the thing that is killing him is also killing me. She never went into detail on that. It never came up again. And every single person I've talked to has no idea what she could be talking about. I don't know. Was this a lie? Does she have some sort of disease her father has or had? I don't know if he's still alive. It could be anything. But that's why I saved it, because I really, really have no clue what this is referencing or why she said that. This is in reference to, well, one of her phishing scams where she was trying to get a donation or a gift, and usually I would just default to saying that I didn't have money, which wasn't really true because in the time that I knew her, I was working a job. But obviously I didn't want to give her money for any reason, so I would just say I didn't have money. And that's why she said Freddie has no money either until she gets it. Freddie is going to have someone pay for her tomorrow if they do anything. I don't remember what she was supposed to be doing. I have a vague memory of her, Roxy, Hannibal, and possibly Lauren trying to go to DashCon, because I believe it was in Chicago. And I know that she wanted to go there in person and see how bad it was. However, if that's what this is in reference to, I don't know. And if she actually ever did that, I don't know. I don't think she did, because she never came back with any pictures. But I do remember that was a situation, so maybe that's what she's referencing. This is in reference to her talking about, well, I believe I explained that story that she used to tell all the time that was so long, and I would mute her. So I can't even tell you what all the details were because I didn't pay attention. I knew it was fake. It was such a dramatized, exaggerated story. It was like, I don't want to hear this for the 9th time. And she told it all the time. Like, anytime she was upset or whatever and wanted to guilt people, she would bring up this story about this ex who, like, beat her half to death, and she ended up in a coma for a while, and she was in the hospital. And then she had this follow-up where Hannibal, the person that she was with at that point, beat him up because I guess this ex allegedly came to the hospital while she was in a coma or something and was gonna like finish the job or whatever. Once again, This story was very long, and she would tell it all the time, and I would just put her on mute. So I only retain bits and pieces of that weird story. But this is what she's referencing here, where she says, my ex was large, and Hannibal is smaller than him, and Hannibal once beat the shit out of my ex. So there you go. Now here's another one where she pretty much instantly contradicts herself. It starts out by saying, Freddie knows what she's gotten into, and this is in reference to running the website that she was running at the time. And then she said, I don't know that I could physically handle a 9-to-5, though I worked one before. And then she does another action which says Freddie is content letting herself be taken care of. And then she adds, oddly, it sounds like it wouldn't be hard, but it is because I'm a proud girl. Which is a complete and total lie. If you've been paying attention to anything I've said in any of my videos, her whole entire existence was other people doing stuff for her. She did not design the website that she ran. She paid somebody to design it for her. Then somebody else ran it for her. She just told them what to post. She didn't even write the post most of the time. Some of the time she did. But like the articles and stuff, the really well-written stuff, she didn't write that. She didn't do any art. She didn't design any merchandise. She didn't want to pay for anything. That's why she had people like Lauren and Roxy who would take her out and buy her whatever she wanted. She didn't want to leave the house, so she almost never left the house unless she was faking some sort of illness. She very, very much wanted this life that she created where she'd have like 3 or 4 sex slaves. They would give her all their money and they would do her bidding. This is not the type of person who ever wanted to have a 9-to-5 job, and I doubt she ever had one in the first place. This was in reference to me asking if the official Hannibal people like NBC, Brian Fuller, all that had her information, and she said that they know her contact info, but she keeps the rest of it offline, but she does put a return address on things that she sends them. And she did actually send them things because I talked about that in one of my videos in the series where she sent a bunch of art to the staff and the writers, but she didn't credit anybody other than Lauren, so people got pissed off at her and left. Of course, here you can see she's saying, I'm also not smart enough to give out my home address. And that was because, well, I think she knew inevitably she would be caught. She was kind of just walking a fine line between that. But I did at some point have a P.O. Box address for her, and it really was her P.O. Box address. Now, somebody who was close to her told me that the P.O. Box was not registered in the name of Jennifer Cornet. It was registered in the name of Freddie Lounds. I did some digging, and that is potentially a crime. But it's one of those crimes where it's like, somebody would have to choose to enforce it, and probably no one was going to. So, like, just trying to get her on that alone wouldn't have been enough. Which, the reason I looked into that is because at the time, she was still living in Chicago, and I thought, you know, maybe I can call the police for some reason. And yeah, I did actually talk to the police in Chicago, like non-emergency contact, and I asked them potentially if this was a crime and all that stuff, and more or less it boiled down to that they couldn't really do anything unless she was doing something illegal with the post office box, or they had like a reason to go investigate it. So since she wasn't doing anything super illegal that I could prove, like money laundering or some sort of scam, they weren't interested. And that was like the most I ever had her on in way of something possibly illegal where she could have been arrested or detained, but it didn't work out. I saved this one because Jennifer had this thing that she did where anybody said they had something weird or unique about them, she also had to have it too. So we were talking about eye color, obviously, and she said her eyes were swamp colored, and I said I have central heterochromia because I do have that, and then suddenly she says she also has it. But I guess I suspected that if she had it and knew that, she'd already know the term for it. I mean, I guess it's not impossible that somebody wouldn't know the term for it, but at the same time, I learned it like a really, really long time ago, and basically all she does is sit on the internet all day and do fucking nothing, so I don't know. All I know is that this central heterochromia thing did not come up until I brought it up, and I pretty much think she's lying, even though I've never seen her eyes. I'm just going to venture a guess and say that she had to have it because I have it. And even then, it's not some super special thing to have. A lot of people have it. I can name actors who have it. It's not like, I don't know, it doesn't make you super original or unique, but she couldn't be shown up by me because she didn't like the fact that I was, quote unquote, the other Freddie, and she knew I role played as Freddie and all this stuff, and she didn't like that. So there was always this whole passive aggressive thing where she had to top anything that I did somehow. This was something I mentioned in one of my videos. I believe it was a video where I was talking about how Jennifer was in huge denial that she was a lesbian because all of her partners had always been biologically female. She just made them dress like men. And then when somebody was actually transgender male, like they transitioned to male and legally became male, she hated them. And she would make up stories about them, specifically this one person. I am not going to use his name, but this is in reference to that because this is what she's talking about. She says here, and he was jealous because Laura, quote unquote, knew me. Yeah, I talked to her in part because of my staff stuff and the creepers, and partially because of my other friend being like, you need to tell her to cool it a bit. And this is the second half of that where she says, he's super, super creepo to Tuxie though, Tuxie being Lauren. And I don't know what I said here, but she said, oh, yes, I recall. He said that he was jealous of her talking to me, which is when this started. This guy had never messaged me, never sent an ask, never commented to me, never said hi. So she was, like I said, she was very, very concerned that this guy was going to, like, take Lauren away from her. And he was just, like, her friend. I've talked to him. At first, we were just, like, it was just friendly back and forth. I like your cosplay. Oh, thanks. Whatever. And then when this stuff started to happen, me and him started to talk more, and I got more information from him. And, well, quite frankly, what he had to say was way more believable and authentic than anything Jennifer ever said about it. So I know he's telling the truth. But that was the situation here. She was trying to make it seem like he was creepy because she wanted to guard Lauren, not the other way around. This is just a little snippet of her saying, Freddie is trying to get Will and Matt to fuck where she can hear it, but Matt and Will and I thought it was a good idea to drink. In this whole sentence, every single person involved, despite the male names, was female. This is in reference to me asking if Maz knows her or if she's ever spoken to him, and she replied that she had his agent's email and that she could give it to me, blah, 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 whatever. And I don't know exactly what made her think she was so special because she had his agent's email. She definitely never spoke to him or got an interview with him, even though I think I explained that her interviews were bullshit anyway. But if I didn't, let me know and I'll make a video about that some other time. This is going back to the guy I was referring to before, the one that Jennifer thought was creepy and after Lauren. And here, if I remember right, the context of this conversation was that Jennifer thought I had done something, but I hadn't. And then we mutually figured out that it was this guy. Or at least that's what I was led to believe. I don't actually know if this guy was behind this drama and stuff that was happening, but I didn't really have another explanation for it. And what she was telling me, because I had very little information, I just kind of went along with it because I didn't know. And this was before I talked to this guy myself on a one-on-one level. So if that person is watching, I am really sorry that I got involved with this. But that was because I had a lot of misinformation. And I appreciate that he did eventually come and clear it up, despite the fact that he must have really not liked me. So thank you. But the full conversation here says, I'm glad to know that someone else did all this shit. And I said, me too. And she said, and I know it's someone who's awful too. He's dangerous and it's good to know, but I'm not scared of him. And I said, I just want to know why they were instigating with me. I don't know how I fit in. Because, as I said with this person, up until this point, I'd only made a few comments with him and my interactions had been polite. But she was insisting that this person, this guy, was instigating or harassing me or sending me hate or something. And yeah, that's what the context is. So then she says, if he lays a finger on any of my friends or staff, he will be in jail so quick he won't know what hit him. And I said, she didn't even roleplay with me publicly. Like, how did he even know? And this is in reference to somebody else that I roleplayed with, named Laura, who is a terrible fucking scammer, and nobody will fucking pay attention to that. Okay, once again, if anybody wants to hear the story for that, that's a story for another time, but that's what it's in reference to. I did roleplay with her briefly, but we never roleplayed publicly, so there would have been no way for him to know this in order to harass me. And then, of course, at the end, she says, I figure it was just jealousy. Sorry, I figure it was just assumed jealousy. But once again, this is just like building up what I'm saying about how she had like this hate boner for this guy, and she just wanted like everybody to hate him and insist that he was guilty of doing stuff that he more than likely wasn't. This one is really self-explanatory because it's just me asking, does Fuller look at stuff you do? As in Brian Fuller, the creator of the show. And she says yes. Which I guess technically was true to some extent, but she did not have the relationship with him that she claimed to have. Okay, I'm going to apologize because I have these things in such bad order. I'm just going through a photo album that I have, and they're just in there in random order, but this is going back to that same guy that Jennifer thought was obsessed with Lauren. I'm going to blank out the name, but Jennifer says, the minute you brought up the blank guy, I was like, oh no, not him. And I said, yeah, he was so fucking nuts to me, my alarms went off, like I think people on there are nuts, but not like that, so I blocked him very quickly. And she said, and that's why I brought you in, to hear from Jamie and Tux, because they have literally nothing to do with Laura. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember who Jamie is. Might have been just somebody on the staff for a brief period of time. Maybe somebody else knows. I don't. But obviously Tux is Lauren, and Laura is the girl I said before who I used to roleplay with. I'm pretty sure that I ended up saying some really mean stuff to this guy because, once again, as you can see, Jennifer was convincing me that he was the one sending me all this harassment. And this was 10 years ago, so I can only remember so much. I'm not saying that I was never a dick. I mean, I know I was to a lot of people. And I do know there was a point where me and this guy and Laura, not to be confused with Lauren, Laura runs this blog called I Don't Find You That Interesting. He was like in this thing with her where they were both sending me hate, so I was sending back hate to him, and it was just fucking stupid petty drama. And then Jennifer kind of got in the middle of this and was like saying all this stuff about how he's creepy and like a rapist and he's gonna go after Lauren, so it just kind of like fueled the fire. And, you know, obviously I'm at fault here because I didn't bother to check the information. I was mad at people, especially Laura, because, God, I could do a whole video on how much I hate that girl, even though it's not relevant to anything. And I think that's just what happened here. And I saved all this because I wanted people to know that she really had it out for this guy, and I swear he didn't do anything nearly as bad as she claimed. I saved this because I found it painfully ironic where she just says, yeah, I literally have nothing to gain. And also, what would I be lying about? And this was at a point before I knew the truth. Well, let's see, what did she have to gain? All the donations that she got, all the attention she got, all the clout that she got. I mean, all of that. She had everything to gain. She had the sex people that she groomed into being into her cult. She lied all the time about everything. But obviously, she's Jennifer, so either she doesn't think she's lying because she's that delusional, or she just, well, I mean, she's not going to admit that she's lying, so take your pick. I saved this one just because I thought it was funny, where she says, if there's nothing else to say about me, I eat fucking well when I remember to. And you've all seen pictures of that fat foot and that fat leg and that fat hand, so she's not lying about that. In fact, in one of my videos, I showed a screenshot of Lauren's mother confirming that a photo I had was of Jennifer just a long time ago. And her mom says, yeah, that's the same person, but she's like 100 pounds heavier now or something. And I'm not trying to fat shame anybody. I don't really believe in that. I just think it's really funny because of the fact that Jennifer always had this whole narrative going that she looked exactly like Freddie and all this stuff and whatever. And it turns out that she was like extremely overweight and didn't look anything like Freddie, which I mean, I knew had to be true in the first place, but I guess it's just kind of funny that here she admits that she eats a lot. So there you have it. Here she is talking about how she's fought a lot of ignorance in real life. And she says, I did a ton of work about historical preservation and respect for our past because without it, we have no future. I just passed the torch on that due to bad health. I don't know. Maybe she did this. Maybe she didn't. I don't know at what point between running a cult in Final Fantasy VII and then running a cult in the Hannibal fandom and probably doing something in between that period of time because that's the only way she knows how to make money, that she was also being some sort of political activist and fighting for historical preservation. But what the fuck do I know? Maybe she signed like one petition online and she thinks that counts. She says here that she didn't want her blog to look that official, so she designed it to look kind of like the show, but pretty. And that's not an accurate statement. Now, I don't know if I'll be able to dig up an archive of what her blog looked like, but I do remember there was a point in time where she very much made it look like she was associated with the show. I also remember her changing that once I came out and said that she was not affiliated with the show, so she removed whatever that was. Now, if I can find an archive of this somewhere, I will put it up here. If I can't, then you're just going to have to believe me. But I can tell you that she's absolutely not telling the truth about this, because even after she removed that little thing that I'm talking about, she still had, like, quote-unquote interviews with the cast posted on her website. And I'm not saying that these people didn't really say that stuff. I am saying that they weren't real interviews, because her interview process was literally sending out a questionnaire to literally everybody on the cast and then hoping they filled it out and sent it back to her. But she would present it as if she sat down in a room with them and they had a conversation and she was an actual journalist. And no, she never met them. These people just like filled out these forms. And that's why most of the main cast, I think basically all of the main cast, she doesn't have an interview with, because really the only people who bothered to answer were like minor people. And she also has a lot of technical people listed on her interview list. And then she has someone named Cleo Linda Jones, who has nothing whatsoever to do with Hannibal or the Hannibal fandom. And I do not know why she's included or why she was interviewed by Jennifer whatsoever. I could not tell you. And I've done research into this girl to see like if there's any possible connection, and there's not. So the only thing I can deduce from that is that this Cleo Linda knew Jennifer before all of this happened, because you used to be able to go to Jennifer's live journal, like before she started Tumblr, and you could see they were already friends on live journal back then, and they were already talking on live journal back then. I'm positive this woman knows something about Jennifer's life before she was in the Hannibal fandom, because they started whatever this relationship was before the Hannibal fandom. This was one of the first interviews she had up, but given the fact that Cleo Linda Jones is not anybody affiliated with Hannibal or the production or the cast, I'm still confused about that. And when I did try to ask her, she would just block me and then act like I was psycho or something. And it's like, yeah, I don't think this woman's ever going to give up the truth, but I do think that she knows a lot of stuff that she's not telling people. Oh, and I just wanted to add that it's because of Cleo Linda's Twitter account that I was able to find Jennifer's account in the American Gods fandom after she vanished from Hannibal. She was quiet for a while, and then she went into the American Gods fandom, which lasted, well, by the time I found the account, it was already dead, but the way I found it was because of Cleo Linda. So it makes me think, and I don't want people to start a witch hunt, I don't want people to go bother this woman or whatever, but it makes me think that Cleo Linda Jones 100% knows where Jennifer is now, where her accounts are, where her blog is, whatever. if for some reason or somehow Jennifer doesn't have a blog or social media, she's still in contact with Cleolinda. She has to be, because she was in contact with Jennifer before Hannibal, and then she was in contact with Jennifer at least at long enough to see her account in the American Gods fandom. And this leads me to believe that they are close friends for whatever reason, and they're always going to stay in touch. Also, sorry for that tangent. That was really long, but I thought it was important for people to know. Now, here she says that she has an anxiety-triggered heart condition, which is why she keeps the stress as low as possible, and claims that she passes out if she gets too stressed. I don't actually know if this is true or not. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But, you know, take it with a grain of salt, because she lies about everything. I do know that, like, years later, I was diagnosed with something called SVT, which later led to a diagnosis of POTS. Both aren't like, you don't need to have one to have the other, but it's not uncommon to have both. My point is that I didn't know I had POTS at the time. I did know I had SVT because I had to go to the hospital like 3 times and they had to stop my heart and it was a whole thing. But when she found out that this happened to me, she got really mad and she was telling people that I was just copying her and I was like making it up because she had it first. And she, keep in mind right here, she doesn't say SVT. She just says she has a anxiety-triggered heart condition. She doesn't say SVT. Now, once again, she may have one. I doubt it. But one would think that if she had SVT, she would just say that and not whatever this whole mess is. But I just thought it was funny that she thought I was like copying her, or that I even remembered enough about this to make up a whole story about how I have a heart condition because I wanted to like top her after the point where we weren't even talking anymore. She was just like bad-mouthing me to people and it was just so ridiculous. This doesn't need much context. This is just her talking about how she gets super deep into roleplay. And she says, I spent a week sleeping in a 16-foot speedboat on Lake Powell. Wasn't bugged at all. We spent the whole week role-playing James Bond. It was great. We had like 10 speedboat chases. Freddie gets serious with her roleplay. Do any of you believe that? Does anyone believe that? I don't believe somebody like her could spend a week on a lake on a 16-foot speedboat. Not at her size. Definitely not. That wouldn't be comfortable. And then there would be like other people there. I mean, come on. How plausible does this sound to anybody? Now, here's another one that references back to what she said before about how whatever her dad has, it's also killing her. And then she goes on here to say that there's mental issues like in her family and none of them can deal with it. But this is yet another thing she never elaborated on, just like the same thing that's killing him is killing me. But this was like, I guess the closest I got to her admitting that she might have a mental issue. This is her complaining about how her life is all about conventions that she doesn't even go to, which is true. In the entire time that I met her, she never went to any of these conventions. She always just sent people for her, even though she would be happy to take their pictures and post them as if she were there and then not credit the people who took the pictures. Yeah, she just stayed in her house. But typically when she said stuff like this, it would lead into a guilt trip about how, oh, she does all this work and she does it for free and she deserves donations and gifts and money, and she wants people to know that, like, you know, she doesn't, that she does this out of the goodness of her heart, but she also believes that she should be compensated for it, even though it was just a fan blog and nobody asked her to make it. This is going back to the thing I was saying before about how she was super paranoid that Mads Mikkelsen was not going to be at Monster Mania. And she says, he can't make it to San Diego Comic-Con, so why is he going to be here? Yeah, exactly. None of my official contacts even know about this, so we're going to bust them. Just waiting to confirm or deny, but I suspect it's a hoax. I don't have any proof of what I'm about to say next, but I heard on good authority from a person who I could independently verify knew Brian Fuller, like, not like Jennifer says. This person, like, knew him before Hannibal, before all that. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to say who they are. Anyway, just trust me on this. This person, because of how close they were to Brian, like actually close, not Jennifer close, they were added on Jennifer's Facebook at some point because Jennifer pretty much liked to hit up anybody she thought had connections to Hannibal. And this person didn't have connections to Hannibal because they weren't even in the Hannibal fandom, but they did have connections to Brian. So Jennifer like really wanted to befriend them. And this person, when I asked them about this, they said that this wasn't even like accurate, that like Jennifer quote unquote knew these people like she said she did. What this person told me was on Facebook, like every single day she would see Jennifer tagging basically everybody, trying to get their attention. Like she wanted to get something from them. She wanted merchandise, she wanted exclusives, she wanted this, that, and the other, she, you know, whatever. And this person told me that it was just so annoying. And it was like so obvious that Jennifer thought she was like super important and that she had a connection with all these people, but they always fucking ignored her. And that she got like so sick of watching Jennifer beg these people day in and out for all these special privileges, and that she just like wished that Jennifer would go the fuck away. But yeah, like I said, I can't prove that. Just take it with a grain of salt. And here's the proof of all of this, where she says, this Mads thing is such a fake, I just know it. It looks like someone is pretending to have him as a guest, a publicity stunt. And she linked me to the convention page. And then she said, I got an email to his agent to confirm it's a tiny nothing convention. First of all, I went to this convention because I was able to at the time. And it wasn't tiny. So I don't, I don't know what she considers to be tiny. I guess I wouldn't say it's as big as some of the conventions that I've been to, but it definitely, I've been to much, much smaller conventions. I would say that at the time when I went, it was like, I don't know, medium size. And it was also like multi-genre. It wasn't like specific, like horror or just sci-fi or just comics. It was like, I remember, I think Adam West was there. I think the guy who played Chewbacca from Star Wars was there. Then, of course, Maz was there. Catherine Isabel was there. There was like a wide selection of people, and it was in a huge building. And yeah, so smaller than some of the big cons I've been to, and a lot larger to some of the horror conventions I've been to, because I've been to some pretty small horror conventions that were basically just in like one room. And yeah, I just really don't know why she thought this was the case, but I knew when she was saying this, and I just thought, first of all, I thought she was an idiot because I didn't think that would happen. But secondly, I thought to myself, if Mads Mikkelsen is actually at this convention, I'm going to it. And turns out that she was wrong. So it was at least a good way to spite her, because I'm pretty sure she is not happy that I got to meet him and she didn't. Okay, I think that is the end of part 2, and I've gone through everything I can possibly find, and I can't find any more. So that's all I have for at least the media part of things that I saved. I definitely have more stories that I could tell, as I mentioned throughout this video. So if anybody wants to hear those, or wants me to elaborate on something else, or has a question, just please leave a comment down below and tell me what more you'd like to know or I should talk about, and I will get to a video on that. So remember to like, share, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.